Professor Kevin Bampton is the CEO of the British Occupational Hygiene Society, the Chartered Society for Worker Health Protection. Kevin is a professor of public law and believes that the right to a healthy working environment is at the heart of all employee well-being. We join Professor Bampton to learn more about the greatest threats to ill health in the workplace and the effect of technology on health and safety provision. Please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your career history and highlights.
Hello, I'm Professor Kevin Bampton. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the British Occupational Hygiene Society. That's the Chartered Society for Worker Health Protection. We're a scientific charity aiming at reducing ill health through the workplace, through everything from radiation through to communal gardens, dust and asbestos. I've had quite a strange career, so I've been a Foreign Office expert, a United Nations Special Advisor. I've held professorships in 2 different subjects, in policing and in law, and visiting fellowships in all sorts of different things. But my main focus is workplace health. I'm also on the board of the Council of Work and Health. And through my career, I've gradually got to really understand just how vital sort of facilities management is. I've had to manage interesting facilities myself, and a lot of the pleasure and pain in life comes from the environment you're in and the critical role of facilities and environments in people's workplace health is right at the heart of what I am doing now and what my organisation does.
What are the greatest threats to ill health in the working environment that facilities managers should prioritise?
So it's critical for facilities managers to understand that they now really hold the balance between people being ill and well. The world has changed a lot. We understand how the environment that people work in really impacts things. And COVID was a perfect example of how good facilities management can have a critical impact on public health. I think it was, in many ways, facilities management's finest hour, because when the only place where you could socialise was the workplace, it was the excellent work of facilities management that actually brought down the burden of the pandemic. And that heightens one of the things that is crucial, which is around air quality and ventilation. The quality of the air outside, if you're in a city like London, can actually be very negative towards health, and how you filter that out is really important. But also the working air inside has to be healthy. And there are real challenges about ventilation, whether it's ventilation within offices, which is highly problematic as the pandemic showed, or in workplaces. And local source ventilation now is more of a challenge as we try and hit climate targets. So the quality of air is really important, but also the fabric and infrastructure of buildings. So asbestos is still the biggest workplace killer. You're talking about thousands of people every year who are dying from asbestos exposure. And although the rate is slowing down, it's going to start raising again as a consequence of all of the work that we need to do to update buildings in line with net zero targets. And that's going to go right into those things which have most of the hidden asbestos, so heating and ventilation, all the thermal elements. So there's a real challenge around that. And we just need to look at the recent report by the National Audit Office around hospitals and schools and the burden of asbestos there. It's a real challenge, and we work a lot with facilities managers who are duty holders in terms of asbestos. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, again, climate change is really, really important. As we seek to protect people from the problems of the climate, we're trying to do things like low energy and water systems and more insulation. And the threat of Legionella, which we thought had kind of died a death, that's really, really coming back in spades. And having low temperature water systems, having sort of lots of insulation and water tanks within that's a prime breeding ground for Legionella. So there's sort of quite a lot on the agenda of health for facilities managers, a lot to do, a lot to focus on, and that's why their specialisms, their expertise is so vital to the nation's health. It really is public health stuff.
What impact, both positive and negative, has technology had on health and safety provision over the last 20 years?
In some respects, things haven't changed a lot. In some respects, there's a lot of superficial technological change, but the fundamentals of how we deal with the health of buildings hasn't moved on significantly. And a classic example is ventilation and local exhaust ventilation. There's a big rush over the last few years because of COVID to start looking at how recirculating air conditioning worked, how recirculating ventilation worked, and how you could purify the air more effectively. And that sort of highlighted in some ways that buildings and facilities are often seen as the end of the line in terms of investment, and if it's not broken, you don't fix it. There's some fantastic practice, there's some really good design out there, but for a lot of people who are managing buildings, who are working with facilities, they're having to make the case for investment in new technologies, but against the backdrop that people like the superficial more than they tend to like the fundamental. So there are technological advances that are of significance. Materials development is really important. The quality of the things that we can use to replace things like asbestos, but everything has its own cost or challenge. But the major developments, I think, are in the quality of design and the way in which we think about and manage and use space.
Is the UK doing enough to reduce air pollutant concentrations, in your opinion?
The bottom line is that outdoor air quality is impacted significantly by the workplace. If you look around London, 20% of outdoor air quality problems derive from construction. So construction is contributing a lot. Now, that's because we actually don't control dust and emissions from the workplace in terms of construction. But the first line of the kind of vulnerability are the people who are working in that. So if we reduced the exposure of workers within the workplace, often what we do is we improve the quality of the environment. So one of the things that BOHS is very keen to see is that we don't put things into the workplace atmosphere, we don't pollute the indoor atmosphere, and that has a positive effect on the outdoor atmosphere. At the moment, there is still a kind of a notion, well, if you put people in a dust mask, if you ventilate stuff out, then it will all go away. Well, it doesn't go away, it just becomes a shared problem. So there isn't enough done because there's not enough done to control the sources of pollution at source to prevent it from going out, and a lot of that is coming from workplaces.
Are there any particular qualifications from BOHS you would suggest facilities managers look into?
So in terms of our qualifications, obviously we focus on protection of health and effective protection of health. So we have the leading qualifications in local exhaust ventilation, we have the leading qualifications in Legionella control, and we are the world's leaders in qualifications in asbestos. But we're a charity, we're not there to make money. I'm not having this conversation to say buy our courses. We do that because people need to know about things. So wherever you go, do try and make sure that you're equipped with the skills and knowledge to be able to deal with these major health issues, because they will help you save lives and they will help you be better at your job.